Hello and welcome to Who's On Next, the podcast where I tell jokes that only people of the age of 60 would actually find funny. Today I have a man widely known for his voiceover work and impersonations both on screen and online, Mr. Jim Meskimen.
Good day. And I'm one of those people over 60 that will judge whether your jokes are funny. I look forward to laughing.
To judge my sense of humor, which...
Yeah.
At least someone finds me funny.
I'm sure more than one person does.
Right.
Perhaps even 5.
I mean, I hope. It'd just be a depressing lifestyle, I would think. But
well, I used to hear a lot, and forgive me to go into a tangent already before we've even begun talking, but you used to hear around a lot that, especially in the field of stand-up comedy, when I was in New York in the 80s, and I never really got into stand-up comedy, but I knew a lot of stand-up comedians, and you heard the word around a lot that, well, some people are just funny, and some people aren't. And I always rejected that. And so I think anybody can learn and achieve humor and comedy. It's not something genetic.
Right. Because I've known people that aren't funny, and people have said they're funny, but I mean, I guess that's also just because it's subjective. But
totally.
Yeah.
Oh.
But I guess get this started. So I guess in the grand scope, because you've had a very diverse voiceover career, not even just voiceover, just acting in general.
Mm-hmm.
But I guess where did you get your start in the industry as a whole?
Well, it's kind of a two-pronged answer here. I will say that I got a good leg up by observing a professional in my life who was a working actress, and that was my mom, Marion Ross, who played Mrs. Cunningham on Happy Days.
Right, yeah.
The iconic Mrs. C. And whereas I did not jump headlong into an acting career until I had really left the house and become a grown-up, I did learn a lot, and I learned more than I really even credited by observing her and what she did. And so that was in Los Angeles. And then after, going to college and doing various other things, I finally realized, for my own sake and for my own goals, I actually do want to pursue being an actor, and I do enjoy it, and I wanted it as a lifestyle. I was by that time in New York City, and I had to, kind of figure out, well, what aspect of this business can I get into, and how do I get in, and stuff like that, and that's where I really started to build things. So, and I always had the concept, though, that I had something to offer, and that's important. I think it largely has to first nestle inside of the individual this little spark of, I think I could do this. Because really, that's like starting a fire. You need a spark and you need a little flame, and then other things catch on fire after that. But if you don't have that, then you're just building a fire with damp wood. And I think we all know what that adds up to.
Depression and sadness and not really getting anywhere. So
Right.
I guess with the fact that your mother is Marion Ross, which is, again, very quintessential sitcom actor from the 70s and 80s, how, I guess, did that ever affect your social life as when you're trying to get work? Or was that just like, oh, she just happens to be my mom?
I've tried different things. Of course, I tried to leverage it, but and it was a lot more potent, let's say, back in the 90s or the late 80s. But in the arts and so forth, it's not like you're a trade unionist. The nepotism doesn't really go very far, and so I don't really. I bring it up and let people know about it because it's interesting, and people have so much affinity for my mother that a lot of that transfers to me. I try to earn it, but I also don't mind, bringing it up because, just like you'd want to know if the guy you're talking to is, oh, by the way, Ringo Starr is my grandfather. You're like, oh my God, it's just kind of exciting. You'd want to know, right? Someone beloved is like, oh my God, I'm touching a piece of this thing that I love. In fact, one time I discovered how potent this was. I was working on a movie as an actor, an Arnold Schwarzenegger movie called Jingle All the Way.
Oh my God, I love that movie.
Christmas movie, right? And I worked a couple of days on it. I played a cop, And anyway, one day on the set, this guy comes up to me, one of the grips, one of the production guys, and he says, "Is it true?" And I said, "What?" And she, "Is your mother Marion Ross?" And I said, "Yeah, yeah." And he just grabbed me and held me. He embraced me for a long moment, like I'm looking around, and I had time to kind of go, and think about it. And then when he finally released me, he said, "Your mother is so dear to me because I was on a shoot with her, a movie, and I was getting my ass handed me by production by this other actress who will remain nameless, and your mom was so kind and made me feel like a person." And I went, "Oh, Jesus, that's pretty cool." So again, I try to follow through with that and also represent that empathy that my mother has shown, and it's not a bad legacy to try to follow up on.
Right? Yeah, it's huge. Because it's funny, because as a kid, I grew up with, because SpongeBob was the thing when I was a kid, and she was SpongeBob's grandma, and that was a big thing for me. Yeah.
Yeah, multi-generational. Yeah, and the reverse works for certain actors, too. I knew an actor named Art Botanides who always played, he was on Happy Days, is why I know about him. He always played thugs and criminals, because when you looked at him, you went thug, criminal. I mean, it was just like automatic. He just was like the poster child. And he was on lots of detective crime shows, and he was always the thug or the criminal or the mob boss or the kidnapper or the drug addict or whatever. And then I found out from his son that, oh yeah, Dad used to get pulled over all the time.
Oh.
Because cops would say, "I don't know, I think I've seen that guy on a wanted thing." And no, they saw him on Mannix.
He just looked like every suspicious person they were looking.
He does. He was. It would be like if you were all dressed up like a pirate. People would go, "I think that guy has some treasure. I don't know. Just feel like there's a parrot nearby here somewhere."
But I think I was looking at IMDb because I was doing some additional research.
How dare you?
But I mean, it may or may not be true, but I did see one thing listed on IMDb that I thought was interesting, and it said you, I guess, were an animator on Thundercats or an artist.
No, I was a senior character designer.
Character designer.
The original Thundercats, yeah. And that was a fluke, really. I was a commercial artist. I just come off of studying art very intensely in Santa Cruz, my college. I went to university there, and then in Spain, where I studied realist painting. And I was on that track to become a painter. And then I shifted gears. I pivoted, as we say today. As the young people say, I pivot. I don't know where that came from. Anyway. I pivoted and became an actor, and I happened to get a job as a freelancer in New York. While I basically was a freelance artist to support my acting training and my acting getting startedness. And so I got this job for Rankin Bass, and they were doing a TV show, an animated show called Thundercats. And I had worked briefly in my teens, when I was like 18, in Los Angeles for Hanna-Barbera as a storyboard assistant, at which I was really pretty inexperienced and not particularly competent. But it was a stat. And so when I went to Rankin Bass and they said, "So what have you done?" I said, "Well, I was a storyboard artist for Rankin Bass." And they went, "Oh, well, here, what do you think? What do you think of these storyboards?" They said, pointing to some storyboards. And I went sagely, I said, "They look a little lean." So sometimes by being mindlessly critical of your predecessors, you can get a job. And, I don't know, something I said must have resonated with Jules Bass, but he hired me. And then I proved myself within a week or so to be so lackluster as a storyboard artist that they went, "We're taking you off storyboard and we're going to put you on character designs." And I went, "Oh, thank God." Because that was actually a job I could do and do pretty well. And I designed every, for 65 or so episodes, every guest star, every vehicle and weapon and weird animal that was in that series. I was the only designer there. I was only the artist, only like pen and ink artist in the building. Yeah, because it was all shipped off to the Pacific Rim, where some marvelous, really, really talented artists did all the heavy lifting. But I would use this machine called the fax to send my sketches. This is an arcane machine. I'm sure you've never heard of it. Send my sketches to Japan and the Pacific Rim, and they would look at it and probably go, "What the hell is this? We can do better than that." But I worked for them for about a year, and it was a great experience, and it allowed me, paid well, and gave me hours, and allowed me to survive while I was building basically my resume as an actor, or getting my agent and getting my reels together. And really one of the first voiceover jobs I ever did was for Rankin Bass, because I was working as a freelance artist for them, and they said, "Hey, we're going to be auditioning people today for a new series we're going to do. And if you want to audition," I went, yeah. And I happened to be working for them upstairs as a freelancer at that point. And they knew I was an actor, and they'd come to see some shows. Jules Bass had seen me, and they were very kind. Lee Daniker, Jules Bass, Arthur Rankin, they were all really, really understanding and kind. And they were supportive. And they said, "Hey, you want to audition for this?" And it was really right up my alley. So I booked a series, went from freelance artist to, the job I really wanted to do, which was voiceover actor, in one afternoon.
That's so interesting, because I've interviewed people before in the past, because Eric Bauza said the same thing, basically.
Really? Oh, yeah, that's right.
Yeah, it was like the same thing for him. He was like a layout artist. I don't remember exactly what he did, but he just was asked to do voices for a couple shows he was working on at the time. Yep.
Yeah, but we're kind of like a species of virus. It gets inside the host, and then we figure out a way to get into the brain. I don't know. Maybe that's not a good metaphor. I can probably think of a better one. But I felt very lucky. I know Eric, by the way. He's terrific. I love Eric.
Oh God, I want to interview him again. I've interviewed him twice in the past 5 years. I would interview him again. He's got that big Looney Tunes gig right now, which is fantastic.
Yeah, he's just gone from strength to strength. He has a very enviable career in animation.
I guess it comes full circle now, because you're on the new Thundercats.
Yes, Thundercats Roar.
Was that casting in the sense that they knew you had worked on Thundercats, or was that just pure coincidence?
No, I made sure they knew, because I thought, any kind of edge helps. And there are many, many good voiceover artists in this town, as you know. You've probably spoken to many of them. And any little red flag you can stick up is helpful. And I used it to some profit on the earlier reboot of Thundercats, the anime version that Dan Norton designed and ran.
Oh, the 2011 one?
Yeah, and that I heard about that, and I said to my agent, "Hey, when you send this audition in, tell them who I am." And they went, "Oh!" And they got excited, and I got hired, and had that series run a little longer. I'm sure I would have been employed much more often. But Thundercats Roar came along. I pulled the same trick. I said, "Hey, send this audition in, but by the way, not for nothing, tell them that I designed the characters for the original show." And they went, "Oh!" a little bit, and hired me to do probably one of the most marginal characters in it. But I don't care. I'm in there, and it was fun.
I guess it's just kind of a legacy thing, which I think is really cool that they've kept you on with each iteration.
Yeah.
In some way, it's like Frank Welker or Peter Cullen with Transformers or Scooby-Doo or things like that, I guess.
That's right. I'm the poor man's Frank Welker, for sure. I love Frank Welker. He's so awesome.
But I guess, because another big thing with your career has been impersonation, impressionism, stuff like that. Because you've gone on there.
That's right. It's been a kind of a speciality.
Right, because you've done stuff for
working it
for JibJab, which was when I was a kid. And did that just come with the voiceover, or was that just something you had also just been interested in?
It's been a part of me for as long as I can remember, that I like when there's somebody that I like, an actor or a personality or a relative or a teacher or whomever, I try to be them. I try to absorb their personality to play back for myself for whatever reason, either for comic effect or just to have company or just for the exercise or the game of it. And so I have developed a facility with my voice,
so that if I hear someone that I admire, I can, plug into that sort of sonic wavelength, if you will, and present it for myself or for other people or for money.
And it's just something that I've gained this through lots and lots of practice. I've gained this facility, like a lot of your guests have, of being able to just kind of
go into a voice just whenever I want, and maybe it's somebody recognizable, maybe it's nobody, or maybe it evokes lots of people from somewhere.
I just think it's interesting when I see people that can, I guess, just do such a wide range, and not even just their own range with their own unique characters, just being able to get every idiosyncrasy of just a person, like even down to their way they act or their mannerisms, or even just down to their tone.
So their vocabulary or their hesitation or
right.
their momentary fumfering. Yes. It's interesting when I really have started to hunker down and study the voice, because I didn't really consider it was particularly different than other people, my interest level, but obviously it is quite a bit different than most people. Most people have better things to do. But when I really began to study it, I kind of had to appreciate after a while that the voice carries a tremendous amount of information. When you think about all the little idiosyncratic things or all the little elements that a person conveys simply through the vocal channel, it's pretty infinite. I mean, there's a lot of stuff. Like, I do some pretty dead-on impressions. I do, like Tommy Lee Jones, I think I come very close to, because for whatever reason we have very similar, anyway, I don't know if it's skeleton or what. I've never done an x-ray to see, but easy for me to drop into. But if you put it side by side with Tommy Lee Jones, you would see all kinds of variation in his actual voice. As close as I come, I'm probably at about 45%. I don't know, but enough to do the job. And in live performing my live show Jimpressions, which I hope one day to put in front of an actual live audience again, although I've been doing it on Zoom. In a live performance, you don't need to be so technically accurate before the audience, because you're just trying to get the audience to think of something, or to laugh, or to reject something, or to go, oh, that's Tommy Lee Jones, that sounds pretty good, But in a professional sense, like if you're doing a movie trailer, little bit of dialogue that's been missing and they need to replace it, or a film where, the actor wasn't available to pick up that line that was obscured by a helicopter noise or a lawnmower, or some other really something that demands a lot of fidelity to the original. You can see, man, it's work. It's hard. You got to figure out. I've sat in front of a microphone and put my fingers on my face and push my teeth back and put things in my mouth to try to duplicate with as close as possible the sound that I'm imitating, and it's always very challenging.
Again, I think the first one I had ever heard was Robin Williams. That was the first one I think I can recall hearing from you.
Was that on the poem I wrote when he passed away?
I believe it was. It was that, or it was one of the Disney games from the early 2010s.
Oh, yes. Yes, there's been quite a few games. There's been some parades. There's been a nice show. I've done a little bit of everything. And it's an honor. When I auditioned for that, I thought, I think I can hit this. And I got called back a few times by Ben Hoppy at Disney Character Voices, and he and I become very, very good friends. And Ben still has to say sometimes, let's keep that really round Robin sound. Oh, yes, of course, very round. It's sort of what I think of as the Juilliard aspect of Robin's voice. And, it's very challenging. But when I got approved at the time, it's because it's been many, many years, I was told anyway that Robin Williams did approve of me to do those assignments that he did not want to do. And to sound as much like him as I was trying to do. So that felt like an honor and a responsibility to try and do a really good job.
Did you ever end up meeting him, or was it just you just did the impression?
No, I didn't meet him. I didn't meet him in that environment or having to do with that at all. But I met him once in an airport, and I met him somewhere else because he got his start on Happy Days, my mother's show. So I had an opportunity to meet him way back in the 70s sometime.
Oh, so this was the Mork and Mindy era.
Yes, the Mork and Mindy, yes. Nanu, yes.
And I was intensely jealous of Robin Williams because he was, he must have been about 5 years older than me, and he was doing stuff that I thought, oh, I'm on that path. And you You just you just scored the winning thing. It's no longer can be. I can no longer break out and do whatever that is. Of course, I had no real idea of the scope of his talent and what all he was capable of. But at the time when I saw Mork and Mindy, I was like, oh, shoot, too young. But now, and so it's a funny relationship, really. And why I wrote that poem about Robin when he passed was that I was like, man, I cannot stop thinking about this guy. Even though I had no real relationship with him at all, because he was on my mom's show, because, I don't know, we'd interchanged, I'd done his voice, I'd had to pretend to be him for various Disney things. I felt this kinship with him, and I wrote that poem to try to express it and try to work through it, and people really responded to it, so I was happy about that.
Another thing I'm interested in, because again, you've done stuff for JibJab, and
yes,
that has
since the beginning.
Off. Yeah, that's skewed off since what? I think 2004 was like the first one I remember. I think because it's since then, even before then, presidential impressions has been like a big thing. I've always noticed you've done that for a ton of stuff. Number one, what's your favorite one that you've done the most?
The presidents, I'd say that George W. Couldn't remember a middle initial for a minute. But Bush, that's it. That's the one. The younger Bush. I mean, there might be a younger one, but there could be a sapling. Yeah, I mean, that one too. I had been working. I had been working on that impression. Actually, people always ask, "What are you working on?" I very rarely am working on anything, but I was working on that one for a while, as I remember, because he was obviously running for president. And during that time, I listened to him and I went, well, a Texas accent that is this, it's confusing why he has a Texas accent. They must have given it to him when he bought a home in Texas. But my father's from Texas. Now, my father didn't really have a Texas accent, but I've spent a lot of time around Texas people. I thought, I've got a little bit of an edge here because I'm really, really familiar with that Texas accent. If I want to turn it on, I can turn it on. It doesn't take any work at all. So I thought I should, and it's about the right timbre. His physiognomy, his face, and his everything, his tone is very similar in pitch to mine. I thought I should be able to do this. So I was working on it, and I was auditioning with it, and I wasn't getting hired. And then one time I went to 20th Century Fox, and I auditioned for the final series finale of The X-Files, where they had a guy right at the end. You were going to see the back of his chair in the Oval Office, and he was going to say something to Scully or Mulder or whatever, and it was going to be George W. Bush. And it was going to be like, oh, my God, this goes all the way to the top, I'm sure the NDA has run out by now on this. So I auditioned for that, and then I thought, God, I can't imagine they're going to hire somebody better than that. I think I did a really great job. Weeks went by, months went by. Finally, I get the call. Okay, you booked it. I'm like, oh, no, when? And they said, tomorrow. I'm like, I'm out of state. I was in Florida. I was wrapped up in another project. I could not do the job. But sometimes when that happens, you get the confidence of knowing, all right, I am a supplier of this voice. Just like Morgan Freeman. When I first got hired to do Morgan Freeman by The Late Show, Dave Letterman's show, I knew that from there on out, I would be able to deliver, and no one could take that away. And it gives you confidence, and then you're ready to go.
I think it's the same thing because I've auditioned for things, even big projects, where I either got like top 3 or I just couldn't end up doing the role that I got, and it's depressing. It really is, but there's this motivation to it almost when you get that far.
Oh yeah, it's very buoying.
I brought up America's Got Talent earlier, and that was a big thing because I actually found out about that a couple years ago because I didn't actually know about that at first when that was going on. And
yeah, that's 2013, I think.
Yeah. I mean, what was that like? Was that just on a whim? You were just like, I think I want to do this.
I was contacted by a producer. I had a viral video, Shakespeare and Celebrity Voices, in 2011. And a lot of interesting things came from that. And one of them was I was invited to speak as a speaker at a conference in Monterey. And when I went up there was a guy who basically was a producer looking for talent. And he said, hey, I'm with America's Got Talent, and would you like to be on the show? And I was like, my opinion of the show, having never seen it, was that it was a show of amateurs. And so I was like, well, I kind of do this. I don't need to be validated that way. And then he went, no, a lot of comics and professionals do it for PR reasons and get known, blah, blah, blah. And I went, oh, okay, well, if that's so. And then I watched the show and I went, oh, okay, well, all right, maybe that's a good match. Mildly interested in the whole thing. Then I said, okay, and I said, I don't want to go and wait in a long line all day outside and all that stuff. I'm just too spoiled and too used to nice treatment, I guess. And he said, oh, no, you can submit videos. And I went, great, submit my videos, great. So I eventually, he called and said, okay, tomorrow we need you to come down to the Pantages Theater in Los Angeles on Hollywood Boulevard and do a little something, and here's what we want you to do. And I was like, okay. So I raced down there the next day, and for me it was just a performance. I wasn't trying to get anything out of it because I didn't care that much, which is a great sort of energy to carry with you into any performance, actually, because then people become very interested in you. Like, why doesn't he care?
Doesn't he want to be famous?
Isn't he grasping at something here? So they wanted me to do this thing where I combined celebrities, and I did like a double, like hybrids, which I'd never seen anyone do. And Howard Stern was there and all those guys. And then I didn't even wait. I just kind of, after it was over, I went, bye-bye. And I kind of went off stage and I went, no, you have to be judged. I'm like, oh, judged. Great. Sounds like a lot of fun. But they were very kind, and they said, you're going to Las Vegas. And I went, oh, I am? Okay, good. So anyway, I'm giving you kind of a blow-by-blow. But the long and the short of it was that I got into it because it looked fairly painless. But along the way, it was very bumpy. I have to say it was an unpleasant experience largely. The best part about it was meeting some really terrifically talented people, other contestants, some of whom I'm still friendly with. And the experience of performing at Radio City Music Hall in front of 6,000 people in that space, and they said 10 million people on the air. That was great. That was a challenge. It was exciting. I was geared up for it. I pulled it off, and I had no designs about winning or really much interest in winning. And I just wanted to do that. I wanted to perform for all those people.
Well, again, I guess it's a good mindset to have, especially with a competition, I feel, because it's just, who would care if I don't care if I win or lose? It's just fun for the sake of fun.
Exactly. Yeah. An experience. Yeah, I learned a lot from it. And now, any group I'm ever in front of, and again, I hope to be in front of many, many groups to come. But if I'm in front of 400 people, I'm like, 200 people, come on. I'm unfazed. 6,000 people.
I was going to say, was that just a little bit? I was going to say that was
a little bit
intimidating.
It was absolutely.
Yeah.
No, I had to like kind of do a little sales pitch on myself back, in the wings before I went on. Why are we doing this? Okay, you want to do this, right? Yeah, absolutely. Okay, because you're going to go on. I know, we're going to go on shortly. Right, so you want to do a good job, right? Absolutely. Okay, you sure? Yeah, let's do it. But I had to talk myself into it, because everything else in the environment was saying, run! Get out! Get out! Get out!
They're all going to laugh at you.
They're going to laugh at you.
Exactly. They're going to throw things at you. People were very kind. It was nice. My mom was there. My wife was there. That was cool.
I guess one of the things I've heavily noticed, and I don't know if this is coincidence or not, but there's been a lot of comic book characters voiceover that you've done. There's Marvel stuff. There's been DC stuff. Because Ultron's been a big thing the past few years.
Yeah. Very grateful for Ultron.
Yeah. Was that ever a thing? Like, were you ever like a big comic book person, or has this just been kind of a big coincidence?
Briefly, yeah. I remember when I was about 10, I was really into comic books, but basically because of lack of any other stimulus at all, I remember we were traveling up to Canada to visit some of my relatives. We drove to Saskatchewan, and Saskatchewan in 1969 was a very, I don't know what it's like today, but it was a quiet place. It was not exactly not exactly the hub of the universe. And oh my God, I was so bored, and I would go down to this drugstore and buy comic books for about 12 cents. And I would just pore over them, and I tried to draw like them. And, I really began to enter the illustrating of superheroes and illustrating a big muscle guys phase very heavily. But, I respect the comic book world very much, and people that are aficionados. I just have gone down a different path, and I've supplanted that with a lot of other things. I'm very interested in fine art, for example. I could talk more about Da Vinci or Velasquez than Jack Kirby or those guys. I just am not schooled in that, and a lot of the great art that I've, for better or for worse, a lot of the great art that I've studied and I am really very interested in has kind of spoiled me for certain art forms. But I tell you what I do love, and I absolutely poured over and I was absolutely addicted to, and to this day really admire, and that is Mad Magazine artists, particularly Mort Drucker, the great Mort Drucker who just passed. Mort Drucker, I just can't say enough about his expressiveness, his delicious drawings. That's all I can say. And I have tried to draw like Mort Drucker at one time or another since I'm 7. I just, probably the other day I tried to do it. I'm still trying to capture that language because it is so compelling.
Oh yeah, Mad's always been something I see a lot of people go back to as like big inspiration. Like even comedians, I've seen musicians. I think Weird Al has said like Mort Drucker
Sure.
and Mad was like a huge thing for him. Like
Sure.
it's amazing, and it ran. I don't remember if Mad ended. I think it ended a few years ago.
Well, I bought one last year that had a promotion for Once Upon a Time in Hollywood on it, and a picture of Leo DiCaprio.
Maybe I'm thinking of something else because I feel like I remember hearing Mad end.
Well, no, I think you're right. I think Mad did end, but it's ended very recently, and it may have ended with a whimper, not a bang, because it's been. Here's the thing I think is very telling about Mad and telling about creative process and inspirational things. Mad Magazine, you would pay for it, and back in the day it was less than $1. It was less than 50 cents for most of my youth. No ads, 0 ads. It was pure subscription. That meant it was purely a gift. And like Marvel and these other comic books, I think they always had those crazy ads. X-ray specs and grow your own sea monkeys and I don't know, just garbage. But Mad, none. Until its later years, it's finishing chapters, and I don't know when it exactly started, maybe within the last 10 years, where they went, you know what, we cannot keep this thing going. We cannot keep these offices on Madison Avenue going, and we can't pay our people. We've got to start selling out. And that was a marked change. But in the beginning, and why I think it's such a pure channel of inspiration to people like Al Yankovic, who I've met many times and I admire, and others, many, many, many artists and voiceover guys and anybody, is because I think a lot of it has to do with the power of the fact that was just a gift. Here you go. And they cared much more about the effect they were creating than making a buck, that's for sure.
I always find it fascinating. Just when I see, because I've met voiceover people that never were into cartoons, or they just were never into just that kind of stuff, and I just find it interesting that their life led them to that point.
Yeah, that's just something they were good at, and it's true of a lot of stuff with me. It's just something that I'm good at, and like even impressions. I'm good at impressions. I do like to do them. I do kind of fiddle around with it, but I don't wake up in the morning and go, "What impression will I do today?" It's not a driving thing with me. I'm interested, and to the degree that I can work and support my family with it, then I'm very interested. But I'm not passionate about it.
I gotta say, thank you so much for doing this. This was a lot of fun.
Yeah, you're welcome. You're welcome.
Is there anything you want to promote? Anything at all?
Yes, I have. Like I said, my YouTube channel's got some good stuff, and I think hours and hours of entertainment there. Lately, I produced a video that I think is worthy of going viral, but it's still hanging fire, but it's not viral. And it's about washing hands, and I do 17 celebrities walking into frame one after the other, crisscrossing one another, or rather riding on each other's coattails maybe, and it's done with that deep fake technology, so my face changes. I do a different impression of everybody from Nick Offerman from Parks and Recreation to George Clooney
To Ian McKellen?
George W. Bush. I do one after the other. A parade. And it's a great video, and it deserves more views. That's all I can say. We work really hard on it. A guy named Shamuk in the UK did the special effects, and Serge Ramelli did the camera and editing. Anyway, check that out on my YouTube channel. My name is Meskimen, Meskimen, and I'd love it if people would go there.